Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate, unshakable comfort in your body, before a single word was exchanged, before your mind could comprehend it, as if every cell of your being softly whispered, "I know you," echoing a recognition more ancient than memory? Or perhaps you've experienced the opposite, meeting someone who seems ideal on paper, aligned in values, interests, and background, yet your breath shortens, your stomach tightens, and a quiet but unmistakable voice within whispers, "No." We are taught to trust our thoughts, to make lists, to seek compatibility through logic. But what if the truest guide to love doesn't speak in words or analysis? What if your body knows before you do? What if love begins not in the heart or the head, but in the nervous system? Carl Jung, the great pioneer of depth psychology, believed that the body holds an ancient intelligence, what he called the embodied unconscious. This is the knowing that arises not from conscious thought, but from something deeper, the inherited, instinctive intelligence of the psyche, housed within the body. According to Jung, our sensations, those subtle but powerful signals of relaxation or tension, attraction or withdrawal, hold the key to understanding who we are meant to move toward and who we are meant to walk away from. This is not mere mysticism. It is biology, psychology, and ancestral memory working in concert. Your nervous system, attuned to millions of microsignals, micro-expressions, vocal tones, pheromones, posture, and subtle energetic fields, responds before your cognitive mind has a chance to form a judgment. Your body is your earliest warning system, your most honest messenger. It does not lie. Many people overlook these messages, misinterpret them, or override them entirely. We've been taught to favor reason over instinct, compatibility over resonance, and certainty over subtlety. But Jung urged us to pay attention, because what feels like just a feeling is often the psyche trying to break through the noise and communicate through the only language it can, the language of sensation. Think back to a time when you met someone new. Perhaps they ticked every box. Perhaps your friends and family were enthusiastic, and your logical mind approved. But your body told a different story. Maybe your chest felt tight, your shoulders slightly hunched. Maybe you laughed and nodded through the conversation, all the while feeling a vague sense of disconnection, a quiet dread you couldn't quite name. That wasn't fear of vulnerability. That wasn't anxiety. That was your body telling the truth. Jung called this psychic awareness, the body's ability to register unconscious recognition before the mind can catch up. And when your body whispers no, despite every logical reason to say yes, you are being guided by something far older and wiser than conscious thought. On the other hand, think of someone who, by all social standards, shouldn't have been right for you. Maybe they didn't match your type. Maybe they didn't fit your checklist. But being around them brought a mysterious peace. Your breathing deepened. Your muscles softened. You felt more at home in your skin than you had in a long time. Conversation flowed like a quiet river, and something in your body exhaled deeply. That sensation? Jung referred to it as the absence of effort, and it was one of the most reliable indicators of soul-level compatibility. Not passion, not fireworks, but the sheer cellular relief of not having to perform, fix, chase, or earn connection. The nervous system, he said, knows when it is safe, and it tells you. Modern science supports what Jung intuited nearly a century ago. The ventral vagal state, a state of calm social engagement, rest, and connection in the parasympathetic nervous system, is the physiological signature of a safe, nourishing relationship. When you're with someone who's truly aligned with your authentic self, your nervous system enters this regulated state effortlessly. You don't need to force it. It just happens. This is not the dizzying high of infatuation, or the obsessive rush of trauma bonds, masquerading as love. This is not the pounding heart of fear dressed up as desire. This is the homecoming, a quiet, embodied knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be. But here's where it gets complicated. Sometimes, the strongest bodily sensations, the most intense chemistry, the magnetic pull, the can't stop thinking about you, obsession are not signs of true connection at all. They are projections of the shadow, the unhealed, disowned parts of yourself that you've exiled into the unconscious. According to Jung, the people who evoke the strongest reactions in us are not always those who are best for us. Often, they are messengers, mirrors, teachers. They embody the exact qualities we've repressed, feared, or denied. And because of that, we are drawn to them, not out of love, but out of the psyche's desperate attempt to reclaim wholeness. This is the shadow dance, and your body knows when it begins. The rush of adrenaline, the hyperfocus, the breathlessness, the roller coaster of high and low. All of these are signs not of alignment, but of activation. You aren't calm. You aren't safe. You're caught in the orbit of your own unmet needs, disguised as destiny. But still, the body doesn't lie. It is simply reflecting the depth of the inner work being called forth. And this is where Jung's brilliance shines. He didn't just name these patterns. He offered a way through them. He showed us how to listen to the body, to decode its messages, and to use its wisdom to guide us back to ourselves. Because at its core, this journey isn't about finding the one. It's about finding the truth within yourself. The parts that are whole, integrated, and ready to love not from wounding, but from wisdom. And that journey begins here, with the breath, the bones, the body. So pause for a moment. Feel into yourself. Ask, when I'm around this person, what does my body do? Does it settle or brace? Expand or contract? Exhale or hold its breath? These aren't random sensations. They are a sacred map. And the body, it always knows the way home. Not all that stirs the body is safe. Not every racing heart is a signal to move closer. Sometimes what feels like love is simply the echo of an old wound. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He observed that many of our strongest attractions are not to people who are right for us, but to those who awaken our most disowned parts, our shadow. The shadow, as Jung defined it, is everything we have rejected in ourselves. Every emotion we were taught to repress. Every desire we deemed unacceptable. Every part of us that was too wild, too much, too sensitive, too angry, too needy, or not enough. These unlived parts don't vanish. They live in the unconscious, waiting. And they have a peculiar way of revealing themselves. Through projection. We don't see the shadow in ourselves. We see it in others. And when someone embodies the very qualities we have exiled, our psyche reacts with force. The body awakens. The heart races. Obsession begins. We call it chemistry. We say we're crazy about them. We think we've met our soulmate. But in truth, we've met a mirror. A person carrying the pieces of ourselves we've yet to reclaim. This is why the most intense attractions are often the most dangerous. It's why the charming narcissist feels irresistible to the woman who was taught never to need. Why the emotionally unavailable man feels like home to the person who grew up craving connection that never fully came. Why the brooding, mysterious partner seems so magnetic when we've been taught to suppress our own depths. Your body responds, not because it's found safety, but because it's found familiarity. This is not love. It's an opportunity for healing, disguised as infatuation. Jung called this phenomenon shadow projection, and warned that unless we become aware of it, we will confuse it with true connection. The body will react with urgency. It will crave. It will ache. It will yearn. But this is not the calm knowing of alignment. This is the chaos of unconscious material rising to the surface. When we are caught in this shadow attraction, the body cycles between extreme states, excitement and dread, connection and withdrawal, high and crash. Jung described this as cycling arousal states, where the nervous system alternates between fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. The nervous system doesn't experience safety. It experiences survival. If you've ever found yourself anxiously waiting for a text, planning your every word to avoid conflict, walking on eggshells, or feeling physically depleted after being with someone, it's likely your shadow was in charge, and your body, wise as it is, was trying to tell you, This is the paradox. Your body screams yes because it recognizes the pattern. It remembers. But it is not remembering something good. It is remembering what it had to do to survive. The pattern is familiar, and so your body engages, not because it's safe, but because it's known. This is why trauma bonds are so powerful. They are built on neurosensory wiring laid down in early life. What was once a strategy for survival becomes the template for attraction. We are drawn to those who trigger the same emotional wounds we've never fully healed. And the body, seeking resolution, says, maybe this time it will be different. But it won't be. Not until we choose to wake up. Jung never blamed the body for this confusion. In fact, he believed it was the body's genius to bring the shadow to light. Through relationship, the intensity, the turmoil, the craving, it all serves a purpose. It brings into awareness the places where we are not yet whole. The mistake is not in feeling it. The mistake is in mistaking it for truth. The shadow's pull has a particular signature. Urgency, desperation, addiction. You might feel the need to be constantly in contact. You might obsess over their words, analyze their silences, feel euphoric one moment and crush the next. Your appetite might vanish. Your sleep might become erratic. You feel alive but also unwell. Jung called this state unconscious possession, when the shadow takes the driver's seat of your psyche and steers you into situations that reflect your own fragmentation. The relationship becomes a stage upon which your unlived self performs. But it never satisfies, because no one outside of you can complete what was split inside of you. So how do you know when you're in a shadow attraction? You feel both drawn and afraid, energized but not at peace. The connection feels significant, but not necessarily safe. You might rationalize red flags. You might stay too long. You might ignore your intuition. And despite all your effort, the relationship remains turbulent. This is the body's cry for integration. Not to fuse with the other, but to reclaim the parts of yourself they represent. Because that's the secret. The shadow isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to return you to wholeness. That seductive, unavailable partner, they're reflecting your own unclaimed independence. That controlling, powerful figure, they hold your buried fire. That unpredictable lover, they're calling your own repressed wildness to the surface. Every trigger is a message. Every obsession is a map. And your body, through its intensity, its symptoms, its surges and contractions, is giving you direction. But this work cannot be done alone. Not entirely. We need the mirror. We need the encounter. The relationship itself becomes the vehicle for transformation. But only when we wake up to the projection. When we say, this feeling is real, but it's about me. When we ask, what part of myself am I seeing in them? When we dare to feel the fire and not run, but also not act unconsciously on it. This is where shadow becomes power. This is where attraction becomes integration. You begin to notice the difference. Intensity no longer fools you. Chemistry becomes data, not destiny. You stop chasing the fix and start listening to the message. And slowly your body shifts. It no longer responds wildly to the ones who mirror your pain. It becomes quiet around drama, unimpressed by adrenaline. It begins to crave something else entirely, ease. Because what the soul wants isn't fireworks, it's freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when your attraction no longer arises from a wound needing to be filled, but from a wholeness ready to be shared. The body leads the way. Always, but it can only take you where you're willing to go. And when you begin to see the difference between the shadow's roar and the soul's whisper, between activation and alignment, between possession and presence, then you're ready. Ready for a new kind of connection. One where the body says not fix me, but thank you. After the storm of projection, after the fire and ache of the shadow's dance, something else begins to emerge. It is not loud. It does not chase or crave. It arrives like a quiet wind through an open window. Subtle, unprovable, and yet unmistakably real. Safety. Not the safety of certainty or control. Not the safety of predictability. But the kind of safety that lives in the body when your nervous system whispers, I can be here. I can breathe. This is what Jung pointed to when he wrote about the individuated relationship, a meeting of two whole selves, not two halves trying to merge, not two egos trying to possess, but two people whose psyches recognize each other not through the frantic energy of need, but through the deep exhale of resonance. And you feel it in your body before anything else. It's the absence of adrenaline, the softening of the jaw, the breath that returns without effort, the feeling that you are neither shrinking nor expanding, but simply being, fully, honestly as you are. When you're in the presence of someone who meets you from their own regulated, integrated place, your nervous system entrains with theirs. You come into rhythm together. This is not because you're mirroring or performing, but because your bodies recognize a shared frequency, a mutual calm, a mutual truth. This is co-regulation at its most sacred. Modern neuroscience calls this the ventral vagal state, the biological condition of connection, play, openness, and safety. It's the place your body goes when it feels secure enough to rest, to trust, to express. In the presence of a truly compatible partner, you drop into this state naturally. You don't have to try. It just is. Jung didn't have the language of polyvagal theory, but he understood this intuitively. He called it the harmonization of psychic fields, when two souls are not entangled or enmeshed, but attuned. Not addicted to each other, but available to each other. You don't feel pulled out of yourself. You feel more in yourself. You don't feel in love in the cinematic sense. You feel in truth. This is the paradox of mature love. It's not always dramatic. In fact, at first, it might even feel boring to the part of you still addicted to intensity, because there are no highs and lows, no games, no confusion. Just steadiness, clarity, presence. And for the nervous system that has known chaos as normal, peace can feel unfamiliar, even suspicious. That's okay. You can learn to trust it. You can retrain your body to understand that calm is not a trap. That kindness is not manipulation. That consistency is not a performance. This takes time, because your body has memory, and it will test the waters again and again. You may find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, expecting withdrawal, interpreting quiet as disinterest, flinching at softness. All of this is natural. Your nervous system is trying to protect you, based on the past. But with the right person, you will begin to experience a new reality. A reality where love is not intensity but intimacy, not obsession but attunement, not rescue but reciprocity. And your body will notice. It will move toward this person not out of compulsion, but out of curiosity. You'll feel a pull, yes, but it won't be desperate. It will be steady, grounded. It will feel like being held by something ancient and trustworthy. You may not feel fireworks, but you will feel home. That's the key. True compatibility feels like coming home to yourself in the presence of another. You are not trying to become someone for them. You are simply becoming with them. The right relationship doesn't ask your nervous system to contort. It doesn't ask your psyche to split. It doesn't ask your soul to shrink. It asks you to show up, as you are, not as you should be. In this space, healing happens without effort. You soften. You speak more freely. You don't watch your words. You don't perform your past wounds. You don't brace for rejection every time you share a need. You simply exist, and that existence is met. Jung believed that this kind of connection was the highest form of spiritual union, not because it completed you, but because it revealed you. He once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. That transformation doesn't come from merging or losing yourself in the other. It comes from the frictionless expansion of who you already are. Your nervous system knows the difference. In trauma bonding, you lose access to your truth. You question your worth. You walk on eggshells. Your system is in survival. In true connection, you come alive, not through adrenaline, but through presence. Not through longing, but through being received. Your creativity returns. Your body rests. Your heart opens, not all at once, but steadily, like petals in sunlight. And when challenges arise, as they always do, you face them together, not from a place of fear, but from a shared commitment to growth. The nervous system remains regulated, not because nothing hard happens, but because rupture is met with repair, not abandonment. This is adult love, not the fantasy, not the myth, but the real, living, breathing, embodied kind of love. And once you've felt it, even once, the body remembers. It stops chasing chaos. It stops mistaking drama for depth. It begins to crave calm, honesty, coherence. This is the nervous system's yes, not a scream, not a spike, not a seductive whirlwind. Just the simple, powerful truth of, I feel safe with you. This is how you know. Eventually, there comes a moment on the healing path when the body says something you didn't expect to hear. It doesn't shout. It doesn't tremble. It doesn't ache. It simply says, I know now. Not because everything is perfect, not because you've resolved every trauma or banished every trigger, but because something in you is finally settled. You have come home to yourself. This is where the work of shadow integration and nervous system repair begins to bloom into something else. Discernment. The ability to sense in real time what is for you and what is not. Not from fear, not from fantasy, but from the grounded place within that says, I choose this because it aligns. I release this because it doesn't. I no longer follow the feeling that hurts me. I follow the one that holds me. This is the difference between choosing from a wound and choosing from wholeness. A wound says, I need you to fix this pain. Wholeness says, I want to share this life with you. A wound says, I'll do anything to keep you. Wholeness says, if it's mutual, we'll grow. If it's not, I'll let go. A wound says, I'm only okay if you stay. Wholeness says, I'm still me, even if you don't. Jung believed that the ultimate goal of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming fully oneself, was not perfection, but integration, to hold all the parts, to no longer reject the shadow, nor cling to the persona, but to live from the self, the center that contains all opposites. And when you live from that place, your love life changes. You no longer confuse chemistry with compatibility. You no longer let the nervous system's alarm bells masquerade as intuition. You no longer collapse your boundaries to be chosen. You no longer ask someone else to make you whole, because now the body knows what wholeness feels like. And you won't trade it again for a flash of intensity. You begin to notice the quality of your desire. It's no longer frantic. It's no longer about chasing or earning. It's about meeting, about resonance, about peace. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of being fully alive in your skin, and having that aliveness mirrored, not threatened by the presence of another. Your nervous system doesn't leap, it aligns. You feel attraction, yes, but it's a different flavor now, not addictive but anchored. It doesn't scream, I need you. It whispers, I recognize you. And maybe for the first time you trust it, because you've walked the path. You've sat with your hunger. You've stopped running from your shadow. You've grieved the years spent chasing ghosts. You've wept over the parts of you that once settled for less, because they didn't know what more felt like. And now you know, not in your head, but in your body. You know what it feels like to stay regulated, to feel safe in love, to be cherished without being consumed, to be seen without being devoured. You know what it feels like to receive, not as a reward, but as your birthright. And that changes everything. You don't entertain people who make your gut twist. You don't chase people who can't meet you. You don't override your intuition for a flicker of attention. You don't confuse soul connection with soul extraction. You've learned how to tell the difference, because the body keeps the score, yes. But it also keeps the wisdom. And it remembers what you've taught it. That it deserves peace. That it deserves joy. That it deserves to open without bracing for betrayal. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You've made it conscious. You've rewired the pattern. You've changed the fate. Now you walk into love as a whole person, not a half looking for completion. And from this place everything slows down. You don't rush into fantasy. You build something real. You ask the hard questions. You honor the red flags. You trust the quiet green lights. You know that the body's yes isn't always a surge. Sometimes it's a silence, a softness, a settling. And when you find someone who meets you there, in that mutual stillness, you realize this is it. Not because they complete you, not because they fill the hole, but because they don't need to. You are whole. They are whole. And what you create together isn't about survival, or validation, or proving anything to the world. It's about presence. Two nervous systems, two souls, two lives, moving towards something honest, something sustainable, something true. And so you stop chasing love that hurts. You stop mistaking anxiety for alignment. You stop folding yourself to fit into someone else's emptiness. You let the body lead, and it leads you here, to the quiet, to the calm, to the connection that doesn't burn. It builds. Not fireworks, not fantasy, but freedom. Love, not as escape, but as arrival. At last. Healing isn't the end of the story. Integration is. Once you've seen the pattern, felt the wound, touched the root. Once your nervous system has remembered what safety feels like, and your soul has felt what presence is, the question becomes, now what? What do you do when love is no longer about survival? When you stop chasing the wound? When you're no longer seduced by chaos? The answer is both simple and profound. You begin to live the wisdom you've earned. You stop performing your pain. You stop spiritualizing your trauma. You stop waiting for someone else to name you whole. And instead, you practice something far more radical. Everyday regulated love. Not as a theory, not as a high, but as a practice. This is where most healing journeys stall. We expect insight to change everything. But insight is only the beginning. Embodiment is the real revolution. Because even once you know what safe love feels like, living it is another story. Safe love can feel boring at first, underwhelming, quiet, even a little awkward. Why? Because it doesn't activate the nervous system the way trauma love did. It doesn't create a spike. It doesn't make you prove anything. It doesn't take you on a roller coaster. So the body, still rewiring, still learning, might whisper, is this all there is? But over time, you realize the absence of intensity is not the absence of intimacy. It's the beginning of real connection. Love without adrenaline makes room for something else, choice. You're no longer driven by compulsion. You're moving with clarity. You don't fall into love. You show up for it. And that's the practice of showing up. When you choose love from a regulated place, it's not always magical. It's often mundane. But the mundane becomes sacred when it's held with intention. Love becomes something you do, not just something you feel. It's in the way you listen without preparing your defense. It's in the way you pause rather than react. It's in the way you soften rather than shut down. It's in the way you repair rather than withdraw. Regulated love is relational hygiene. It's the consistent tending to the space between you. And that space becomes the crucible of transformation. Jung called this the temenos, the sacred container where deep, psychic work takes place. In relationship, the temenos is created through safety, attunement, and mutual regard. It is not built on perfection, but on presence. Inside that container, the real work begins. You are no longer using each other to fill a void. You are holding space for each other's becoming. This is adult love, loving while still healing. Many people believe they must be fully healed before entering a healthy relationship. That belief often comes from shame, the internalized idea that we are unworthy until we are fixed. But regulated love doesn't require perfection. It requires ownership. You can be healing and still be capable of love, if you're willing to take responsibility for your part. If you can say, that was my trigger, not your intention. I'm feeling activated. Can we slow down? I need to co-regulate, not control. Let's come back together when we're both present. Then you are ready to practice this love. Because this love isn't built on who is right. It's built on who is real. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about how you repair. It's not about constant bliss. It's about consistent truth. And that truth includes your wounds, your patterns, your fear. You just don't let them run the show anymore. Co-regulation and the shared nervous system. In a healthy relationship, your nervous systems learn each other. They develop a rhythm, a way of coming back to regulation together. This doesn't mean you never get dysregulated. You will. But you don't weaponize it. You don't use your pain as leverage. You name it. You own it. You work with it. Not against each other, but with each other. This is where love becomes the vehicle of transformation. Because in relationship, the nervous system learns faster. It rewires through co-regulation. When your partner stays present in your storm, not fixing, not fleeing, your body records something profound. This pain is not too much. And when you hold the same space for them, they feel it too. It's not therapy. It's not performance. It's practice. The daily practice of coming back. Back to your breath. Back to your body. Back to each other. Again and again. The choice to stay awake. Even in the healthiest relationship, there will be moments of contraction. You'll feel the old reflexes. Shutting down, pulling away, collapsing, controlling. The difference is now, you notice. And you make a choice. Do I close or do I reveal? Do I blame or do I inquire? Do I abandon or do I reach? Regulated love is not about never falling. It's about choosing how you rise. Together. Even if that means stepping away. Even if that means slowing down. Even if that means saying, I love you and I need space to come back to myself. Because love without boundaries is not love. It's fusion. And fusion is not connection. It's collapse. In regulated love, boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges. They let you remain yourself while staying in relationship. This is the gift of true integration, becoming the safe space. In the end, you realize that the deepest safety comes not from someone else's regulation, but from your own. That's the final layer of the work, becoming the safe space you spent your life searching for. Not so you never need anyone, but so your need is clean, clear, coherent. You can say, I want to be met. I want to be held. I want to be chosen. And you can say it without grasping, without collapse, without confusion. This is not independence. This is sovereignty. And sovereign love changes everything. You don't chase anymore. You don't perform anymore. You don't beg your nervous system to override its wisdom anymore. You live in your body. You listen to your truth. You choose love not to complete you, but to expand you. And the people who can meet you there, you'll recognize them by the way your body says, quietly and clearly, yes, this is the next step. If this spoke to something deep in you, don't stop here. This is more than content. It's a mirror for your healing, your wholeness, your return to self. Subscribe now to receive more soul-aligned reflections on love, attachment, embodiment, and becoming. Because real love doesn't start with finding the right person. It starts with remembering who you are when you're regulated, clear, and whole. Let's keep walking this path together.